Good afternoon and welcome to Titan Talk. Hey guys, thanks for joining us today. Today you've got just me. Cat McFarland couldn't join us today. He was off doing some stuff with Chief Leon. So today I decided to have a special guest, and Mr. Brian Pazza is joining us again today. So thanks for joining us today, Brian.
Happy to be here. I love that Leon and McFarland go off. I think usually Fridays. Is it the pedicure or the manicure that they do normally?
It's the Petty Manny. It's
The
both.
Petty Manny, both. That's such a special time for
We're
them.
gonna
I
pay for
appreciate
this.
that.
So we wanted to have a little bit of a discussion today. As you guys can see in the title, we're talking about school safety and security with recent events. Unfortunately, this is kind of a topic that has come up quite a bit, and we just kind of wanted to have a little conversation with each other and then you guys about what it entails and some of the aspects behind it. So school safety has always been a huge thing. I'm from the country, and I grew up where I'm pretty sure there was more than half of us had hunting rifles in our trucks. I had a gun rack in my back window, and it was normal. Now, mind you, we also had 2 security officers. We had a sheriff who lived on property, and we had that in a presence, but it wasn't. It was normal, I guess you could say, to us to have that kind of a presence on, where sometimes you come across some of these schools where they don't have that, or some people get caught off guard from that, I guess you could say. But I think it's definitely something that I think is needed at schools is that type of presence to know that the kids are safe, and it doesn't matter if it's kindergarten, elementary, middle, or high. I think that should be at all of them, personally.
Yeah. I mean, there's obviously nothing more important than taking care of kids, obviously, and keeping kids safe in schools. Or, it's a big area where a bunch of kids all get together every day, so that's clearly a thing. I was going to ask you, my goal of being here is to kind of pick your brain a little bit too, because obviously
That's dangerous.
I know I'm going to be selective about what I choose to ask you. So I don't have a security background. I was going to ask you, what do you think some of the challenges are logistically? Let's just start logistically. Obviously, we're kid gloving and being careful about what we're talking about, but there are some realities. But what are some logistical challenges of protecting schools, in your opinion? What do you think?
So I think there are a couple of ways to look at this. I think it kind of depends on the type of school it is. So when you've got yourself, I think there's a difference between elementary and high school, and I think that the implications that there could be a difference there is a difference in them. You know, how you treat the school, how you treat the surrounding area. Is the school fenced off? Is it open to the public? Can someone just walk on property and stuff like that? I think that changes the dynamic of what is expected. And I think that also changes what the expectations of security is, whether, that be law enforcement or security officers or stuff like that. I think it plays a huge role. The schools that we do, because we do schools, most of them are fenced-in properties. It's one way in access, one way out access, and it is we know you're there, we know you're coming, and we're expecting it. When you show up, and you're just showing up to just show up, there's rigorous things you have to go through. You have to check in with security. They have to, make sure that you know who you are.
Right.
Are you there for one of the kids? They ID you. When I say that, they give you a little ID, a little nameplate.
Oh.
And they tell you where the kid is, or where you're expected to go is, and stuff like that. And I think that plays a huge role in it. Whereas if you've got like my school and where I grew up, my elementary was fenced off, our middle school was not, and our high school was not. So our elementary was 3 ways in and 3 ways out. You had the teacher parking and then the bus lot. Those were the only ways into the school because it was all fenced off. But our high school, it was open game. You could come in from any direction.
Same. When I was in high school and elementary school, it was just a campus. It was a parking lot and a campus. So you mentioned, I know that we do security for schools, and what are some of the and I have some statistics here that are kind of interesting too. But what are the things that are specifically looked out for? And I remember when I did the simulator with you, one of the simulations was an active shooter in a school, and it was just a simulation, but that was terrifying. I mean, there was sounds all through the hallways, and obviously there's very narrow corridors and turning around things, and I don't know if you saw, but I haven't saw it, but I heard the body cam footage from Nashville, right?
Yes.
And whew, I was just in
I
the
have seen
car,
it.
and my heart was
Yes.
really. I mean, that's narrow corridor, everything. It's very difficult. It sounds like.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, we're not. I mean, thank God we're not dealing with that every day or anything like that with what we're doing. But what do we? How does Titan protect schools? What is some of the training? How do we select officers to go into schools when we place them? Tell me a little bit more about that.
So when we're looking at schools, we look at we'll start with the basics of protecting the school itself. We take in, like I said earlier, we take into account, we're looking at what type of property is it? Is it fenced off? Is it open? What is that going to entail for watching for people coming on property versus do we know who they are and stuff like that? That definitely plays a huge role in the type of, I wouldn't say personality, but the type of personality. It's the only thing I can think of. There might be a better way of saying it.
Sort of the mentality.
Mentality, there you go, of person that we're putting out there.
Yep.
Is if you're getting something that is more open, you're looking for someone who is going to be moving around a lot. So you want someone who has that expectation, who understands that, who likes to move around and wants to move and walk the entirety of the property and check for those things and stuff like that. Whereas if you've got it's fenced off, there's one way in, one way out, it confines that a little bit. Now you're still going to walk around the property to make sure that nobody sneaks in and hops a fence or something.
Right.
But the expectation of that is a little bit lessened because you've got the fence around the area.
Right.
So when we're selecting a school officer, what we're looking for is we're looking for someone, at least what I would think that we looked for, and something that I see in the officers we have at them now,
Right.
are somebody who's not only relatable to the students, but somebody who's relatable to the staff.
Okay.
And so it's somebody that when the students see them, they
Yeah.
can feel safe with that individual.
That's an interesting point because sorry to interrupt you,
No,
but
you're
there's the idea of like,
LJ, Foreigner Kittens, Charles, thanks for joining us.
hey, LJ, I was just talking to him today. Super fan, that guy. When people think of like having an officer or guard on campus or in school, it's not just a body walk around the hall. Like,
No.
they're bumping into people,
Yep.
they're talking, they're helping out, they're dealing with who knows
They're
what.
helping, and that's the other thing is it's not just they're worried about the external factors; they're worried about internal factors too. So they're assisting teachers with insubordination with the students when they're getting angry or they have a fight going on. They're also stepping in and stopping that and making sure everybody's calm and collected in that. So it's not just an exterior thing they're worried about; they're
that must
focusing on
be
the
so
interior portion of it as well.
Tricky, by the way, because we'll hear the dispatch calls come in. It's like, hey, a lot of times I hear things like it's somebody's refusing to leave. That comes in all the time.
All the
but
time.
that's an adult, in a building. And when you're dealing with schools, so we're this show is talking about not only what we do but security in general and everything. So we have maybe people watching that are disinterested in security, but I have a feeling a lot of people who are watching are actually in the field. So when you're dealing with adults, it's one thing. That's an adult person that can make their own decisions. I'm talking about also
In general.
liability and legal issues. So when you're at a school as an officer or doing security, you're dealing with minors. So like, let's say you see a fight that's breaking out there. How do you break that up? What happens if you have to separate and now you got to put your hands on kids? Like, there must be a lot that goes into that.
There's a lot of consideration that goes into it. So when you're talking about, there's a difference between a fight between two adults and two minors.
Or an adult and a minor.
Or an adult and a minor. And when you're talking about two adults fighting, it's very easy. There are obviously the big no-nos that are across the board for things that you can and can't do.
Yeah.
And then as long as you're separating the parties and keeping everybody safe, that's the big thing. When you're getting in with minors, that's when you start getting into you get into treacherous waters. And so it's very easily to overstep those bounds. And that's where the mentality of those officers while they're out there and getting to know the students and getting to know the teachers
Right.
and knowing that, because then when they step in with those fights between the minors, because they happen.
Yeah.
Everybody here, hopefully, who's watching has gone to high school and knows that everybody fights. I've had a few in my high school.
Do you want to hear something funny? I've never been in a fight in my life.
Really?
Not a single. I've never. And in fact, my brother-in-law one time, he was visiting us in Houston, and you remember Fight Club?
Yes.
Where he's like, "Hit me as hard as you can."
Yep.
And I had this moment where something came over me. I was like, "I want you to hit me in the face," and he was like,
Never the face.
I'm not going to hit you in
Never
the
in
face."
the face.
And then later he was like, "Okay, I'll do it," but I was like, not in the mood anymore. So I was like, "No." But I was like, there's a part of me that's like, never been in a fight, never been in a physical altercation. So Anyway, my high school. Well, I was homeschooled, so
You had a better high school.
well, I was homeschooled towards the end, so that was awkward for prom too. Sliding the note across the table to your sister. Do you want to go to prom with me or whatever? Anyway,
No, get away from me. You're
yeah.
weird.
But we had a big drug problem in my homeschool, so that was really tough. No, so yeah, that's interesting because that relationship dynamic. So we have relationships with our officers that are stationed at buildings often, right? And they know the people that go in.
Yep.
So that must be part of it too. You get to know the kids.
So the big thing with that is a big portion of being a security officer or an SRO for a school, as a police officer, is not only getting to know the building, but it's getting to know the faculty and the students. A big portion, and my first job here wasn't at a school; it was at an apartment complex. And one of the things that I used to do is when I was talking to the residents about what was going on, or when we would get a call from one of the apartments about someone being loud or whatever the case would be, I would go talk to the residents and I would get to know them. What that played into is the same thing, very similar to what it is with getting to know staff and students, is when something's going on or one of them feels uncomfortable with something, they're more apt to come to me.
Or it seems unusual, like, Tom, what are you doing?
Yeah.
I know you. What's going on, dude?
And so,
rather than this guy's always trouble or something.
Yeah. And so they're more apt to go to you and say, hey, I have an issue, or hey, this is going on. And so it makes that dynamic a whole lot easier to where you can get to those, what would necessarily be a fight or a problem before it happens. And you can get them into where they either need to talk to another teacher or a counselor or somebody and help address those before they become full-blown issues.
Let's think about that, because I do want to be transparent. Like, we have gotten in the past couple of days this week, I'd say about 5 or 6 website contact forms, because I see them all. And from a lot, we just got one today. It was like a private homeschool group, right? We're seeing them more often. So if you are an administrator or decision maker at a private school, at a public school, at something like that, what are some things that you should be thinking about when you're calling or speaking to or looking to hire a protection company? What are some questions that they should ask, and what are some things they need to consider when they're considering security right now?
That's a good question. You got to try and stump me with the big ones, don't you?
Well, I mean,
so some of the things that I would say, and I'm going to steal this from Chief, and it's something that he taught me when I started doing temp work.
It's going to be good.
And it's look at the 3 biggest concerns and issues that you think your property has.
Okay.
And so when I'm talking to temp clients, when I was talking to temp clients, I would ask them, what are your 3 major concerns? What are the 3 things that my officers need to do for you to classify them as being a success?
Right.
Every day. Right. What are the 3 things? Are we looking at building safety? Are we looking at when somebody's on property that we need to address them and
preventative
and stuff like that? What are the 3 big concerns that you're looking at?
Yeah.
Is it something where you have had your buses are coming in and you have a parent slip in and you don't want that? And so you want them out in the bus area managing to where the parents park versus where the buses park. Do we have an issue with the pickup areas and stuff like that?
Yeah.
That type of thing.
Okay.
And so that's what I would think with a school, the big thing is that, and then inside the school, monitoring the students in the hallways, making sure that they're not starting fights and they're not starting fights with the teachers, and stuff like that. That's where I would what I would be looking for.
And elephant in the room a little bit. I don't know if you can see this on this camera, but
a little bit, and I can't
we
see
have
much
got
of it.
a heck of a storm rolling in right now. Like, I'm kind of, part of me wants to see a tree branch just shear off, but so elephant in the room just for a minute.
Sure.
So I pulled up some stats. This is on ChatGPT, so I hope it's accurate. But I pulled up school shootings.
Okay.
Starting from 2000. So it ramps up significantly. So there's like a little bit of a bump, but in 2000, there was 39. Okay. Get down to 2020, 178.
Okay.
And it really picked up on 2017, 109, 116, 146. So just boom, boom, boom. In the early 2000s, it's in like the 30s, 40s. There's one like 70. So it's like not in the 3 digits, right? So you see that escalation. In your opinion, and I guess in my opinion, I would say yes, but it feels like when you're talking to a company, you have to consider armed guards at this point. Armed officers,
when it comes to, I would say that's a tough one, because there are areas that I would say armed officers are absolutely 100% with unequivocally an absolute.
Yeah.
Me personally, when I think of schools, I think 100% it needs. I would say an armed officer. Me personally, just because that's our future. You know, that is the future generations of us.
Yeah.
And I think that needs safety almost above all else.
And I'll say this too, like I'm going to stay. I'm saying this is a non-political statement, okay? And I'm curious if anybody in chat's chimed in about any of this yet. But if anybody's watching, like if we've got I'm interested to hear what the people watching
Absolutely.
have to say or questions that they're thinking. I'd love to hear their thoughts on this. But non-political statement, like whoever X, Y, or Z, guns are available, right? So my thing is like, hey, you want somebody that's on campus there that's going to be somebody who's well-intentioned.
Yes.
When
So-
there's somebody who's not well-intentioned, who's there to do harm, you want somebody there who's there to prevent that.
Yes.
More than anything.
Absolutely.
That you can trust.
100%.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I go to it. Not a lot of people know this, right? But there's a couple of different facets of security. So there's during the day, and then there's in the evening, right? So there may be people. Let's say I'm just going to go through a scenario, okay? And this is just hypothetical, so it's whatever. But if somebody has the intention of doing harm, let's say at a school, you know, there is a possibility they may go by when nobody's there to check the place out, right? So, like we offer, for example, what we call virtual guards.
Yep.
And these are units that can sit in a corner of a parking lot or attached to a pole in a parking lot. And you can have 3 or 4 of them, whatever. And they can, and we've got our like just right down the hall here is our 5 Diamond dispatch center.
Right.
We've got 24/7 people watching these alarms and cameras. So there's another aspect I think to think about that where it's like, okay, you've got during the day when there's eyeballs, and then there's at night. And we like to say it's like, hey, you're either recording a crime happening or you're like deterring actively.
Right.
So that's something I think that's important to consider is the after hours when nobody is there. How are you keeping an eye on your building and property
Right.
and things like that?
And that's a key too. Is having that after hours eye on
Yeah.
the property. That's definitely a key to it. Keeping most schools. I mean, even my school. Like I said, I came from the country. Even my school had cameras. Now I'm pretty sure only like 5 of them worked out of the 50 that were there. Because talking country, low budget.
Right.
So I'm pretty sure most of them were fake. And it's like I think that's a camera.
There's a guy sitting at a desk somewhere.
Yeah, yeah. And
With
I don't
the
even think there
old
was, I
radio
think
in
it
the
was, I think
corner.
it was in the principal's office where the screen was like fuzzing in and
Yeah.
out, and it was like shh.
He's got a thing in the corner.
Yeah, but you know, it's the same time. I know that there were cameras at work because we had a couple of kids that would go through and do their senior pranks, and they got caught doing it because they caught them on camera.
Yeah, well,
But
amateurs.
yeah, never did a senior prank.
Yeah.
Unbeknownst to my school, though they blame me for one of them.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah.
What did they blame you for?
One of our seniors decided to go through and put Loctite and glue, super glue, like crazy, like
Yeah.
Gorilla Glue,
Oh, yeah.
in all of the locks. And they blamed me. They thought I did it.
all of the lockers.
Outside, oh, no. All the outside locks that let you into the building. So
That's kind of amazing.
and when I say all of them, I mean all of them.
Did you see that woman who put gorilla glue in her glue in her hair to try to get it to? And she.
You couldn't do it. Yeah. Yeah,
That's
that was bad.
terrible. I feel so bad
But-
for that lady.
Yeah.
Right.
So I mean, the cameras play a huge role in it. Having security presence plays a huge role in it. I think there's a
And by the way, monitoring too, because a lot of schools will have a good camera system, but they don't have
It's the
people
monitoring that plays the
after
difference.
hours.
Yep.
And not a lot of people know this, but so we do this a lot. We get calls all the time. Like we got somebody who's in Puerto Rico, I think, recently, out of the country. So international, what? But you can plug in a lot of camera systems to, for example, like our monitoring just in like less than 24 hours without downtime, which is nuts. That it's like
crazy
boom,
how easy-
30
yep.
cameras, and it plugs into like our AI system, so it does detection and stuff. It's pretty amazing.
and the AI, the AI we use monitors for the difference between human traffic versus animal traffic, vehicle traffic, and stuff like that.
Humans
And
with a gun.
Yep.
Yeah,
it can
it's
track
pretty
all of that. It's
incredible.
pretty. It's actually really cool system that we use.
Yeah.
But having that is, I think, what plays a huge role in there. Like you were saying, having that after hours security as
Yeah.
well is what plays it's not just. I will say, I think a majority of the time that those incidents they're not pre-planned. I think it's a moment of passion, and I think it's something that pops up that way. I don't
Maybe.
think it might be
It's a mix. It's interesting because in this case, so I've been following a little bit. In this particular case, Manifesto, they found notebooks with drawings. So that does happen, premeditation.
Oh, absolutely. I'm not saying
or
it
sometimes
doesn't.
there's multiple people.
Yeah.
So that's definitely a thing.
Again, not saying that it doesn't happen.
Sure.
Just I say that. So my high school had a school shooter when I was in. It was my sophomore year.
You were there? Oh, wow.
I was in Spanish class.
No way,
She
dude.
she came into my building.
No way. What happened?
We had teachers. We had 3 teachers at the time that were carrying guns. They had concealed carries.
I should have.
I don't know if it was beknownst to the school or unbeknownst to them, but we had 3 teachers. I knew one of them for a fact was carrying, just because he
would show everybody his
he
gun.
Was, he was garbage at concealing it. Loved him to death. Ex-Marine, super nice guy.
Okay.
Just garbage at concealing it. I don't
He's
think
like, hey, you ever seen one of these?
I think he was
Smith &
just to the
Wesson?
point of like, I'm a 20-something year Marine vet. I've got
Yeah.
all that. I've got my CCW. You're not going to tell me not to
Yeah.
type of guy.
Yeah.
Super nice guy though. It's like coolest guy you're ever going to meet in your life.
Right.
And but no, I was in Spanish class. It was second period, I think, and we heard the car screeching into like where the buses go.
Yeah.
And we're like, that's really weird. And everybody's supposed to be here already. And we were like, whatever. And we kind of just went on with class. And then she went trupping through where the building was. There was the middle building here, and then there was another school, another building here.
Yeah.
She came screaming through. She parked her car in
It
front
was
of.
a female? Wow.
She came screaming through here, walked through and was screaming and yelling, and then came into my building, and she popped off 3 rounds into the ceiling tiles, and started screaming something. I'm gonna shoot people in this place and all like that, and going off. And one of the teachers down the hall who was carrying heard
Yeah.
it, came out of his classroom, secured the doors. As the second shot rang, my teacher was freaking out. She jammed stuff in between the door and was trying to keep it closed, and so he comes around the corner and you could hear him. He goes, we didn't know who. At the time, we didn't know who it was.
Yeah.
And he yells out, "Hey, I don't know what's going on. I know you're having a tough time, but
Yeah.
you need to stop this. You need to put the gun down. PD's already on the way. Sheriff's department, and we had a live-in sheriff, so he lived on campus.
Oh, really? Wow.
But he was off dealing with something a few miles out, so he stopped what he was doing to come back. And so this teacher's yelling at her, stop, just put it down, calm down. And she didn't. And she kept going. And he wound up firing at her.
Did he get her? Did she die?
No.
Oh, wow.
She wanted to.
Yeah, right.
She was. They found out after the fact she was trying
Yeah,
to.
same thing with this poor person in
and
Nashville.
so
They're like, I just want to die.
Sheriff showed up.
It's terrible.
The teacher had already around. I think it was in her shoulder, I believe. It's been so long, I don't remember all the details, but it was in her shoulder. He had secured the firearm. Sheriff rolled up and found her, and she was crying.
That's so sad.
And she was begging for the sheriff to just shoot her.
Oh, that's
She was
terrible.
just absolutely begging for it. And
And that's what I mean when I say like we did and thanks for sharing that, man. That must have been nuts. But when we did that simulator, that feeling was so intense. And because also I know it's a strange thing, but like these hallways are all echoey. I know it's weird, but if you think about, put yourself in the scenario. So yeah, I mean, worst day ever. So so there's all those different factors. There's the outside. So she came screaming through, right? So there's the outside. And there's the inside factor. There's just the day-to-day, and but it's something obviously that is on everybody's mind, and it's really important to think and talk about. I think we should talk about it. Be prepared and think about what you need to do. And so, I mean, making those decisions is obviously never easy and requires really good training. Can you talk a little bit more, or did anybody chime in with any questions? Or
we've got a couple here that say we got a. Way I see it is we have armed guards protecting all sorts of things that we deem valuable. So why not protect the most valuable thing to us, which would be the kids and the future generation, which is what I agree with. What?
Oh, you were just. I want to make sure people can hear your wonderful
I moved
wisdom.
it closer so they could.
Okay,
hopefully.
good. I want to make sure.
We've got another one here who we actually have a guy who commented on here who used to be a school officer for us, for a security
really?
officer. And he said all the incidents that I had dealing with in his 2.5 years at the school, most of them stayed in-house and behind closed doors because he was able to handle it
Yeah.
before it became a major incident.
Yeah.
We have Diego saying that his school had cameras, but they didn't stop the kids from fighting. It wasn't until they brought in an SRO, an officer, before that stopped all that.
So bringing an officer in shut all that down.
Yeah, and that's the thing is when you have that physical response,
Right.
when you've got that person standing there who is the response to the kids wanting to fight and stuff like
And
that.
they know them.
They're less apt to do it because now they know that somebody's there to stop them.
Yeah.
And then it gets a little bit deeper when you actually know the SRO.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
They know they're
our-
not going to either put up with it or.
Our security officer, the one we had two. We had two security officers and an SRO, technically an SRO, and one of the security officers, and his name was Joe. Super nice guy. And when Joe was around, nobody wanted to fight. Nobody wanted to fight. Everybody knew Joe. Everybody knew that Joe would beat you up. Not
Right.
really, but you know he would stop it, and he would,
Right.
and nobody wanted to do it because we all had major respect for him.
Right.
When the other guard was there,
Yeah.
nobody liked her. She was
Darlene.
I don't even remember her name, but
Clarita.
she was so bad that there were a couple of Halloweens that people had TP'd her house.
Wow.
Yeah, but she was mean to everybody. Like there's a way to get your convictions onto somebody when it comes into that situation without
Yeah.
being cruel.
Right.
She wasn't like that. She was always mean to everybody. She was yelling and screaming. She was pointing and
Yeah.
and it was just nobody
You
respected.
do
her.
that to me constantly.
Oh,
That's part of the
absolutely.
reason I can't.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
That's-
every time
That's
you're-
why I have you on the show.
The
so that
phone
way people
rings or you walk by the office. I'm like,
hang up on your phone.
God, here it goes again.
Mess with your mouse all the time.
Verbal berating. Yeah, that is so fascinating. And I was just thinking back over your story. So, like, deconstructing that a little bit or looking at that. Did you bring me a Coke?
No.
So,
You have a big old bottle of water right there.
I know I need to drink more. I'm trying to drink this giant thing every single day. So, in your instance at your school, she shows up, which is fascinating to me. When I heard, statistically, it's usually males.
Male.
So whenever I hear like, oh, there's a female involved in school shooting, it's not about men versus women, or it's just always. I'm like, whoa, it doesn't really happen statistically. So it's very interesting. But so she shows up, and then boom, immediate response from that teacher. Stopped.
It was the first. She walked into the dorm. I mean, you could hear her through
What's
the
interesting
whole
is she
building.
boom boom through the rather than just.
Well, nobody was outside. Nobody was out in the hallways.
Oh.
So she walked in, and what she was trying to do, she was trying to cause a panic to get everybody to come out.
Oh.
And so she was trying to get us out in the hallway.
So she's there, and so what happened? What I'm saying is, if that person had not been there to stop her, who knows what had happened?
Correct.
That's my thing. So like having an individual on the premises on there, it's always funny.
It makes a huge difference.
Yeah, I'm stopping myself because remember how I talked about I watch the TV show Cops like all the time.
Oh yeah.
My favorite thing is, I just caught myself when you have somebody on the premises, they always show up to this is a total like shining squirrel tangent, but they have somebody, they show up to like this terrible neighborhood and they're like, what happened? Like, well, what happened, officer, is
Yeah.
the man adjudicated himself from the left side of the front entry. And I'm like, you don't talk like that, dude.
Yeah.
Whenever they talk about, he absconded on the left with his vehicle, they call it a car.
Yeah.
And everybody they talk to, they always use this like really formal, like they're writing a report.
I'm not that smart. I'm very low down.
So I'm, like, on the premises.
Country school. Like I got to understand that. I'm
Yeah.
country school.
It doesn't. You don't present that way. So they had somebody
you.
there in the building.
Yes.
So I think that's so.
And I think and that was his classroom was in
Oh,
there.
no.
Oh man.
You promised
So
me. What
I
was my one
said-
rule?
I'm just gonna say.
You're
Get
not
in,
on
get in.
camera.
Well,
no,
no.
sit.
I'm just gonna say hi.
Sit.
No, I've got something I gotta do.
All right.
Hold on, wait, come
I
back.
love all
Hold on.
7 of our followers.
Come on,
now
come
it's-
back. They couldn't see you. I had the camera off.
Now
So
it's weird.
McFarland decided to join us. We get low on the camera,
Where's it at?
right in front of his
Here,
face.
get your face right here.
Hello.
You and Leon have some good pedicures.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mimosas.
Oh, knew it. So that's I think it's just important to consider. Like, it's good as a school administrator of some kind, somebody who's responsible for the safety of the students there, decision maker, board member,
Like I said,
whatever.
The three people in our, not counting, because our security guards were unarmed, not counting the sheriff who was a live-in on the property, the three people in our school that were concealed carry, and I'm almost positive, I don't know because I haven't been back to that school in over a decade.
Right.
But I'm almost positive. I know one of them is still there. I don't know if he's still concealed carry, but I know one of them is still there, and I know that the other two were there 15 years ago, which is after I graduated anyway, but they were still there then. I don't know if they still are, but I can tell you that all three of them had military. One of them was ex-law enforcement.
Right.
Not long. I think he was 3 or 4 years in a different city, state, and then he moved here to be with family and
Yeah.
he was a baseball coach.
Wow.
And then the third one was he was also ex-military, but we had Marine, law enforcement by 2 years or 3
Yeah.
years or something. He wasn't in it very long. And then the third one was Air Force.
I think that's so critical to point out because I was thinking, man, just like what a horrible situation for that teacher to have to put himself in. He's talking to the young woman.
Mm-hmm.
She's out there. She's clearly death by whatever. She just wants to die and take other people with her. Maybe that was her purpose, just to cause the scene to get killed. Who knows? But terrible, right? And then they have to come out around that corner and they have to put ammo down range, I guess. They have to shoot at this young woman. So having that military background, that training, can you talk a little bit about for here, and then maybe for anybody who's watching who's like interested in security or is in security, talk a little bit about some of that training that we do for the guards who are armed.
Sure.
And how that applies, or what kind of, I know, look, I'm not going to say there's a silver bullet. That's not the right way to put that. There's no magic training.
There's no magical training that will train you for everything that can happen in the world.
Not only just
There's
what'll
not
happen in
that.
the world, but to handle a situation
Yes.
like that.
So when it comes to the training that we do, and I am extremely biased in this, I think we do, excuse me, I think we do the best training. And
You want 4,000 gallons of water?
I'm good.
Okay.
I think I'm extremely biased in this because this is my only security job I've ever had.
Right.
So I'm extremely biased because I went through our training department. I'm part of our training department. As I'm an instructor, I'm one of our range instructors, and I participate in our defensive tactics and our FATS training and all of that. I'm a huge part of that. So I'm extremely biased. But
Yeah. Knowledgeable, I would say, too.
yes, in our training that we give our armed officers, one of the things I love about it is the diversity of it. It's not just here's how to de-escalate a situation. And it's not just here's how to beat somebody up with a baton. There's everything in there. We walk you through de-escalation. We walk you through handcuffing. We walk you through defensive tactics, not only to defend yourself but others. And in our FAT simulator that we use,
Real quick, you went through those a lot, but like de-escalation.
verbal de-escalation. So it's using. I saw a movie one time and it said all adults. The battle with adults is in the gray. Is in the mind. And that to me has always been a thing, and I'm stealing this from Chief again. Our biggest deterrent and our biggest weapon that we have is right here. It's the ability to talk and use that to bring somebody back down to a calmer level. When you're dealing with somebody who is irate, whether it be a minor or whether it be an adult, being able to talk to them and finding a reasonable, logical explanation and bringing them down
If
is
possible.
is the best case scenario.
Yeah, okay.
And that is the biggest thing that we have going for us is having that clarity and calmness to us in those situations and being able to do everything we can to talk somebody and de-escalate the situation.
Right, okay.
So having that is probably the best tool and the biggest tool that we have. And so we teach you how to use that, how to,
Keep going.
no, and how to talk that stuff down. Defensive tactics is defending yourself and others, handcuffing to secure an individual, and then our FATS training. The biggest reason I love the FATS training is because it's so diverse. There are thousands of simulations on that thing.
I want to do more of those. I know.
And it goes all the way from being out in a public park with somebody who is incoherent, who is just looping back and forth on themselves, all the way as far upwards of active shooters in almost any scenario. There's convenience stores in it, there's schools, there's warehouses, public buildings, parks, there's everything.
I remember that
And
school
so-
one that you had me do where you come up and the guy's back is turned and he's...
Yep.
That was...
And
my
so-
brain went, oh my God, what do we do here?
And so having that diversity is amazing because you can train for a lot. Now, I can't train everybody for everything. There's too much in the world that can happen. There's too many variables. But I can give you enough information to make a good decision in the situation.
There's the ability to say, hey, here's some big stuff, right? Here's some big stuff in some common areas. So that makes a lot of sense. By the way, I want to ask for the folks that are watching, like if you like these kind of topics, hit the like button or leave a comment and let us know if you're watching either like live right now or if you're watching it later. leave a comment below and let us know if this is interesting or if you'd like to hear more of these things or other things. We love hearing from everybody who watches.
Absolutely.
I mean, people come by, and you said you were noticed in public, but
It was one time.
and he won't stop talking about it.
No.
Knowing what it is that people want to hear. We're obviously passionate about this topic, but we want to talk about things that are interesting and helpful, right? So, and I think we do that a lot, but hearing from you is really important. So, and if you know somebody who's in a school as an officer or somebody who's an administrator, send them this video, and I think it covers some good topics. What do we get?
Mike. Coop is immediately recognizable.
It's true. There goes that Coop. So anyway, I just thought about that. Like, that'd be good feedback for us.
It would definitely. If you guys liked it, throw a like on there and let us know in the comments so that we can keep doing stuff like this and get and do more stuff like this.
Well, those are the main questions that I have, but I thought it'd be good to talk about this because everybody's obviously thinking about it.
Definitely.
And it's important. You're going to have certain voices talking about this, and I'll say certain voices talking about this. They're doing it for their own gain. In other words, like, hey, let's sensationalize. Let's use this. I want to talk about it so we can help people.
I think, I kind of tie it into talking subjects like this. I tie into. We did the breakdown video, the last podcast.
Yep, last one.
And
I'm sorry I missed that. I was in a meeting.
Yeah, never gonna live that down. And in the breakdown video, I said that we do stuff like that, or when we talk about topics like this, it's not to badmouth anybody, or it's not to criticize, or it's not to Monday Night Quarterback. It's to learn. And the reason being is because you take incidents that go on in the world and you learn from it. You become better. You better yourself as a security officer. You better yourself as an SRO officer, as a police officer, as a person in general, to help bring the society that you're in up a level.
Yeah,
and if you can't talk about this stuff, if you can't bring it to the public, and you can't have a valid, logical conversation, then you're just hurting yourself.
Have open, good, and we're the experts, and there's people who want answers, so let's help them. So yeah, I think it's important to discuss. So my main takeaways from this listening to you were so hey, I what you said about just like fights stopped when a trusted and known SRO was in the building.
And it's not just, and that's anywhere. It's not just in schools and stuff like that. If you were, you might never feel like this because you said you've never been in a fight before, but hopefully some of our other viewers have been in an incident where they're getting ready to, they're angry, you're pumped up, something's gone on, and you've got that immediate reaction of, I'm going to hit this guy.
Yeah.
That's my thing. And then your friend steps in and goes, dude, breathe.
Yeah.
Just take a second, man. Calm down. And you're like, you're right. Hold on. And you step back, and having that recognizable, that person that you can trust, whether it be security, an SRO, police officer, whatever the case may be, having that, a loved one. I've had friends do that to me before. I've been angry before in one of my past jobs, and I had coworkers that I trust to walk up and go, dude, you need to breathe.
Oh yeah.
You need to take a step back because you're like getting ready to throw somebody in the street. It's like, you know what? You're right. I need to take care of this. I'm going to go take a breath. And having that, even like as a student, as a teacher, as an SRO, as a security officer, having that is immeasurable.
And I want to take a moment. When you had that moment of anger, I believed you. Like you're talented with your performance ability. That was impressive. I really believed you.
That's hurtful.
Is this getting weird?
Yes. Anyway,
there is a thing also, like when I walk into a store or something, you notice when there is a security officer around. So I would say if you're an administrator, somebody who's responsible for kids at a school of some kind, think about what do we need to do to keep them safe, and then know there are options. There's not only like that person available there and at like during the hours, but there's after hours stuff.
Yep.
And I know that it can be. There's ways to combine that, so you can have like what we call blended services here. So you can have a patrol drop by, and it's very cost effective. Officers, it can be a little pricey, but the thing is, like, find a way to get that in there because it's important.
It's very important.
It makes a difference. Not just school. Okay, this is interesting. School safety is not just in a horrible situation like this.
No.
It's comprehensive.
Yes.
So keeping that in mind is important, and it goes a long way to just the, I guess, mood of the school, having the right person. So ask questions about the experience that people have. The training is really
And
important.
that's something else is as clients, when they're reaching out to security companies to look in for, hey, they've started the discussion of wanting security officers or SRO officers or whatever there is. When you're talking to the companies that you're talking to, and you're saying, hey, we would like this. What type of officers do you provide? Because every company is going to have different levels of officers.
Yeah.
And
There's
you're going to have
armed and unarmed.
unarmed. There's entry level versus the guys that undoubtedly cost a little bit more, but come with years of experience. And that plays a big part is having somebody come in with security and say, hey, we want somebody who's got 5 years experience,
right?
Or 2 years experience.
Do you
or
guys
has this.
already take care of schools? Do you have experience with that? I think the
something that you
biggest
handle on a normal
question,
basis?
learning more about this, being here, is the biggest question people need to ask when it comes to safety, and for schools or anything else, is when they're speaking to a company, is what is your training like? Because talking to you and just learning a bit, other companies do a few hours of training, give people their certificate, and stick them on the road.
I will neither confirm nor deny.
So that, I mean, it's true. There's a turn and burn thing.
Yeah, there are companies out there that the training they provide is a 3-hour video.
3-hour video.
3 to 6 hour video, and they hand you a shirt and they say, this is where you report to.
Right.
Show up, good luck.
Right. So, and other companies can do that, but you need to ask, tell me exactly what you do for training. And I would say, how many days do you train people for? That's a really important question, because you don't want somebody hanging out.
I personally would amount it to hours.
Hours. Okay. How many hours?
You can say, I train them for 3 days, and that sounds really good. But in that 3 days, you only train them for 9 hours.
That's great. Okay.
Whereas if you were to take our training program, our armed officers go through 40 hours of training.
40 hours of training, right. So, yeah, I think that's the biggest thing, because it translates directly to the quality of service you're going to get. So, again, I'm really not trying to make this a pitch, honestly. I know it sounds, I'm totally sound like I'm pitching this. I'm just realizing, as we more and more and we talk about this, people watching, do your due diligence. That's a really important question. And it goes directly to the question of, I would say, school safety, because you want somebody there who really has not just been thrown on the street or something along those lines. So that's what I have, man. I think it's an important topic.
Agreed.
I'm not afraid to talk about anything that needs to be talked about security-wise, I think. Oh, buddy.
So I do want to say earlier, we had wow, I don't know, they can see a little bit of it, but without moving the camera, they can't see it all.
Oh, are you on me right now?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm like,
we've been on you the whole time we've been talking.
I'm not from here.
We had earlier, it said, our Shamrock security team resident meteorologist reports that there is a tornado on the ground moving into Little Rock, Arkansas.
Wow. Yeah.
Yes, Diego, it does sound like Titan is a good company, and you should work for us again.
Yeah, I think he
so
only
real quick,
says
I'm going to say that again. You should work for us again.
I think he only says it every
podcast.
Come on back. We are thinking about your mom, though.
But
grandma? Is he taking care of the grandma?
Why do you got to bring it out, man?
Isn't
Don't talk about that stuff in public.
Well, he said it in the message. That he talks about. He said he's taking care of family.
Choice. Diego, I'm defending you.
We're thinking about you, Diego. That's
grandma.
all I'm saying.
He threw me out to the wolves. He says grandma.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. We care about the Diego.
We do.
So I'm glad we talked about this. Did you have is there anything amiss or any final thoughts?
I mean, there's a bunch of personal feelings, and again, keeping political stuff out of it and stuff like that. There's a ton of things that you can consider when you're talking about security.
Right.
And it's not just a one thing fits all. There are a multitude of things to look into. What type of security officer do you want? What are you looking for after hours? What are you looking for during hours?
Yeah.
What are your biggest concerns and stuff like that? There's a ton that goes into it. It's not something you should just gloss over. It's something that takes a big consideration and some actual conversation with the company that you're looking into it for.
Critically important to ask all the questions. And I'll say this regarding the political thing. I don't care if there are 0 guns on the planet. Meaning, like, if all guns... If we had a Thanos moment and every single gun disappeared from the planet, regardless of the reason, we've seen people run through crowds in cars. We've seen people run through crowds with box cutters or knives. People who want to do harm will find a way to do harm. So I'm just talking about safety from people who have ill intent towards kids.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
So in this instance, and of obviously we're talking about, but people, there's been instances of schools and there's stabbings and bombs and all kinds of stuff. So
Michael says half of all guns, Brian. Thank
half.
you.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
Thanos moment.
The Thanos moment. Well, oh man, I just dropped. I'm gonna hear that. I dropped a couple of nerd points right there,
And you lost one completely.
It is a very delicate ecosystem out there, so I got to be careful with the nerd points. But safety. I'm just talking about
Safety, yeah.
safety.
And that's the big thing. When it comes to safety, there are tons of things to consider and look at. And I think it's valid to have a conversation with the company that you're looking at, to do this, to partner with,
Right.
and to say, hey, these are my concerns. What are your thoughts? And then what are the options that you provide?
Yeah.
What else besides this one thing can you present me with?
And I like what you said about in relation to officers or people in the security industry watching. It's not just about providing protection when you're at a school, from what I hear you saying. It's about creating an atmosphere, I think, and being a healthy, positive, protective presence, instead of just, I'm here to keep the peace. It's like, these are kids, and kids have a hell of a lot they got to deal with every day, so they don't need another person jerking them around, so being there, we've all thought about those authority figures that are like safety figures in our lives, so that's important.
I can tell you that all of the officers that we have that are posted at schools absolutely love their job. They
Yeah.
absolutely love the schools that they're at, and the kids that are there with them
Yeah.
absolutely love the officers.
Yeah.
They connect with them, they understand them, and they work together to create a positive environment
Yeah.
for everybody. And
It's an important job.
we have had officers at schools get promoted, and the kids are probably the angriest out of even the teachers.
Yeah.
I showed up after we had one. She'd worked there for a while, and we promoted her to something else and moved her from officer to another role. And it was technically a promotion. And I stopped off to visit the assistant principal and the new officer just to say hi and make sure everything was okay. And this was back when I was in the field.
Yeah.
And a bunch of the students saw me and knew I was their supervisor.
Yeah.
And looked at me and said, "You're mean."
You're mean.
I went, "What?" And I was like, "How am I mean?" They go, "Because you took you took this officer." And I was like, I was like, okay,
Yeah.
I get where you're coming from, but
They're like, you're nothing like
yeah.
Tony.
And I
Tony was
like,
cool. You
Here's,
suck.
here's why I did that. And they go, "We don't care. We
don't
want
care."
our officer." Like I can't hold them back.
Man, they were like a father to me,
Yeah.
dude.
And
Why'd
so,
you do
know,
that?
That kind of connection is just invaluable.
How'd it go without the headphones today?
I don't like it.
Pretty bad?
Yeah, I don't like it.
You did good.
Brian's trying to get me to change, guys. I don't like it. But on that note, guys, I think we're going to call it.
This
give
was
you guys
great.
the traditional weather stuff that we do. It's been rather warm, but
yeah.
man, is it windy.
It's bad outside.
It's supposed to rain. They're calling for it. It's supposed to rain, thunderstorm, about 50% chance for today. The weekend, you're looking at about 50 degrees on 50 to 57 on Saturday. Mid-70s on Sunday, Monday with chance of rain.
I would
So
say the weather is cow.
it's
Same cow.
it's one of those dress for the weather the best you can, guys. Stay hydrated, and we'll catch you guys on the next one. Thanks so much for joining us, Brian. Thank you so much for joining with me
Oh,
today.
man, I love talking with you.
So on that note, guys, we're going to end it. We appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your weekends, and we will see you guys in the next one. Thanks.